On today's Locked On Jayhawks, Matt Lubick is back. The former KU football analyst returns to be the tight ends coach and co-offense coordinator. Home run hire for Lance Leipold. We break that down as well as some of the latest offers to the offensive side of the football out of the portal.
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening? Derek Johnson here. This is Locked On Jayhawks. Thank you for making it your first listen every day. Thank you to the everydayers catching each and every show. We are free and available anywhere you get your podcast. Also on YouTube. Also free. You can like and subscribe to the show there. On today's edition, we're going to be talking about KU football. And they made a hire of Matt Lubick, who we talked about the top candidates that we would like to see KU get the offense coordinator position when Jeff Grimes took the Wisconsin job. It was Jim Zebrowski. It was Matt Lubick. Well, it turns out Kansas got them both. They had their cake, and they're going to eat it too. We're going to break that down, why it's such a good hire for KU. Plus, KU has a lot of offers already out there in the transfer portal. We're going to talk offense today. We're going to talk defense tomorrow. So all those right here on the show, which is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, where you can get a big return on FanDuel to start the season. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com, and you can get started today. We start right here. Matt Lubick hired as offensive coordinator for KU, and co-offense coordinator, I should say, along with Jim Zebrowski, also the tight ends coach. Now, it does sound like Jim Zebrowski, who was named the offensive coordinator before this happened, will still be the one calling plays. It seems like the quarterbacks have liked when Jim Zebrowski's been on the field, so you wonder if he'll stay on the field. And Lubick, who was previously in an analyst role when he was with Kansas, will be upstairs, and that'll be a perfect match of how you kind of make that work. Obviously, Kansas had the open tight end position as well when Jeff Grimes left, because not only was Grimes the offensive coordinator, he was the tight ends coach, and before him, Andy Kotelnicki was the tight ends coach. So Lubick hired. This was from Bruce Feldman earlier on Tuesday morning. Nevada offensive coordinator Matt Lubick will return to Kansas as the Jayhawks co-offense coordinator / tight ends coach, a team source said Tuesday. It was later released on Tuesday night from KU themselves with some quotes from Lance Leipold and Matt Lubick and stuff like that. It felt like when KU had to hire an offensive coordinator to replace Jeff Grimes, that it was a choice between, do you get Matt Lubick or do you get Jim Zebrowski? Little did we know that they could end up getting both. And the fact that you were able to have your cake and eat it too, this is an absolute A+, I think, offensive coaching hire. I guess if you just want to lump this together for what KU has done with the offensive coordinator job. You have Jim Zebrowski, a guy who, you look at Andy Kotelnicki's offenses, they got a lot better when he was at Buffalo when Jim Zebrowski arrived as the quarterback's coach. And we saw what he did as the offensive coordinator, play caller in KU's bowl game, and has really, been along with Lance Leipold for a long time. He was first offensive coordinator at Whitewater. That works out great, and great that he got promoted. Lubick works out great as well. He was an analyst for KU in 2022 and 2023 when they had some of the best offenses in the conference and in the country, and he was pivotal in infusing the option stuff that Kansas is doing on the offensive side of the football. So this has worked out about as good as possible. And honestly, Matt Lubick might have been the offensive coordinator last year had, he's going through, I don't know if he's fully through everything or what, but he was battling leukemia last offseason, and it made it so that it was a very uncertain timetable for him where he couldn't commit to being, hey, I can be the offense coordinator, I can be here for all these practices, etc. And Kansas had to make a move. They went out and got Jeff Grimes, right? In an alternate world where, things are cleared up, he might have just been the hire originally to be the offensive coordinator for KU. The timing just didn't line up. So now you get the timing lined up maybe a little bit more, and it works out. And this was pointed out by Bruce Feldman in the news story on the hire. He said, Lubick has had one of the most resilient stories of the 2024 season. He was diagnosed with leukemia in October of 2023. He's been in remission since last December. His daily chemo treatment consisted of taking 5 pills. He coped with nausea and fatigue, but was still able to make a profound impact on the Nevada offense. So, not just a brilliant coach, but a very inspiring story from just a human level. And here's his full coaching story. So he began as a GA at Colorado State, took over as the DB's coach at Cal State Northridge, which shout out to that. That's my dad's alma mater. So a little bit of a shared getting to be when that university actually had a football team between those two, I guess. Then he goes to San Jose State. Also, I guess, shout out mom's alma mater as the receiver and TB's coach. He goes to Oregon State, Colorado State again, Ole Miss, Arizona State, Duke. And at Duke is, I think, when things really started to blow up for him. I don't know, maybe even Ole Miss. But at Duke, he ends up being a finalist in 2012 for the American Football Coaches Association Assistant Coach of the Year award. He was also the receiver coach of the year by Football Scoops that same season. So now he's really blown up. Ends up going to Oregon when they're kind of running things in their prime with Marcus Mariota and, Mark Helfrich and post Chip Kelly and stuff. And he becomes the pass game coordinator, offensive coordinator for a season before eventually the head coach is let go. He wasn't retained. Then he becomes the co-offensive coordinator at Washington. He eventually goes to Nebraska as offensive coordinators and receivers coach. Then becomes the senior analyst at KU, as we mentioned, in 2022. If you remember, 2021 was not a great year for KU. Now, 2022 ended up being a fun year. They made it to a bowl game. Part of that was player progression and a lot of other things, but a big part of their improvement from 2021 to 2022 was also adding Matt Lubick in that offseason. And KU did a really good job keeping things under wraps during that offseason of, hey, we're going to start running this like kind of option offense a little bit. And Matt Lubick was kind of the mastermind behind that, infusing that into Andy Kotelnicki's offense. And so he gets a lot of credit for that. And then you look at it, KU went from the 104th ranked offense without him in 2021. They became the number 6 ranked offense in 2022 in his first season. And then he stayed in that role in 2023. Kansas had another good offensive season that year. Then, like we said, he ends up having to go through the leukemia stuff. He eventually takes the offense coordinator job at Nevada after the timing just didn't line up with the Kansas stuff. And I brought this up when, a couple shows ago. So if you're an everydayer, you already caught it, but it's worth repeating. Or if you missed it, then Nevada, you might look at it and go, oh, he was on a Nevada team with 3-10 as offensive coordinator. Like, how impactful really was it? Well, Nevada only won 2 games the year before. So, in theory, a 1-win improvement. They also hit their over on the Vegas over-under win total. So in theory, surpassing expectations. But here's what I look at. Nevada averaged 17 points per game in 2023. Lubick takes over. They go up to 23. Touchdown better. If this offense was a touchdown better going into 2025, they'd be even averaging more points per game than they did in 2023, right? They went up from 300 yards per game to 370. I mean, a 70-yard increase is a gigantic number. They took huge strides in year one. And if you would have stayed at Nevada, they probably would have taken even bigger steps in year 2. And this is I think, very interesting too, because I think sometimes, how successful your offense can be. Obviously, the play calling does matter and everything does matter, but a lot of times it can also come down to how good your players are. But then there's another part of it where it's like, okay, I think a lot of people equate, if you're good in the red zone, you have a good offensive coordinator, right? I don't know how much truth there is in that, but certainly it doesn't hurt, because Nevada was 130th in red zone touchdown percentage in 2023. They went to number 8 last year with Matt Lubick. They were also 26th in the country in third down conversions was Nevada. They were 127th the year before. So I think Matt Lubick did an excellent job with Nevada. And again, he's not going to be the one calling plays. That'll be Jim Zebrowski, but he'll have a hand in, adding to the offense and everything. This feels like a perfect blend. I think of Lubick as being, and I know Lubick's been a receivers coach for a long time, so obviously he has a mastery of that as well. But I think of Lubick as being like your almost running game expert, and Zebrowski being your passing game expert, right? Both obviously know the other parts of it too, but you blend it together, and I think that should be a lot of fun. And now you have to match the coaching with the personnel, but with JD Six back, it's a good start. Let's get into some of that personnel. Maybe they could be adding in the portal with some of the latest offers on the offensive side of the ball. That on the other side. This is Locked On Jayhawks. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place those bets. Just visit FanDuel.com. You can join today. You get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's at FanDuel.com, Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL and the Locked On Podcast Network. Continuing on, thanks for making Locked On Jayhawks your first listen every day. You can check out Locked On College Football to really get a scope of how nuts the portal is from a national perspective as well here with Locked On College Football. All right, so we're going to split this up because receiver is the biggest position for KU in the transfer portal on the offense side of the ball right now. That's one they have a lot of openings. They have a lot of playing time. They have a lot of catches to be had to try to build it around Jalen Daniels. So this segment, we'll talk receivers. In the next segment, we'll talk the rest of the offense. Jalen Moss is the first guy I want to get to. So these are guys that I've seen reported offers for KU so far. Obviously, this will be an ever-evolving list of guys, committing other places, not liking the offer, not taking a visit, more offers going out there, right? And we'll continue to update you there. But so Jalen Moss is from Fresno State, 6'1", 175 pounds. He was a redshirt sophomore last year, so that means in 2025, he will be a redshirt junior, 2 years left to play. That's always a bonus when you can get a kid who's going to be around for multiple years. He had 55 catches, 706 yards, and 6 touchdowns as a redshirt freshman in 2023. Then 48 for 563 and 4 touchdowns this season for Fresno State. What makes it more impressive is season high in receiving yards came against Michigan. 6 grabs, 97 yards. I don't know how much like Will Johnson, who's going to be probably a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. I don't know how much he was guarded by him, but that even though Michigan wasn't nearly as good this year as they were a year ago, like the defense isn't really the reason why. So that was impressive there. PFF grade 65, 67 the 2 previous years. He had almost a 96 receiving grade on medium throws. So really did a lot of work in that middle level of the field. He lined up in the slot a third of the time. So that means he's versatile. He can play either position. And here's what I really like. 265 yards after the catch. Luke Grimm had 283, which led KU. No other receiver, Devin Neal had almost 300, but no other receiver had over 150 for KU. So he'd be a good yard after catch receiver. He'd be a good intermediate receiver. And I think this would be a very good take for KU if they can get him. Joseph Williams, I'm going to go a little quicker on him because it sounds like this one might not be plausible. That's unfortunate because his final 4 games, 21 catches, 461, 5 touchdowns. But it sounds like there's going to be a lot of big offers after him. So I don't know how possible that one is. If he could get back into it, that'd be huge. He was, I believe, the AAC freshman of the year. Bryson Canty is a receiver from Columbia, not Columbia, Missouri, Columbia out of the Ivy League. 6'2" receiver. He spent 4 seasons at Columbia. He was hurt and only played 3 games though in 2023, which means he'll be a grad senior with 1 season left this year. Last season, 43 catches, 760 yards, 9 touchdowns, 18 yards per catch. He also had over 700 yards in 2022, again, sandwiched around that injured year. Obviously, that's against FCS opponents. That's against Ivy League opponents. So, big jump in the competition that's coming. But he had an 85 grade on Pro Football Focus. He had a 77 grade in 2022. And on deep balls, he had a 99.7 PFF grade. Now, most receivers, their PFF grades on deep balls are going to look a lot better because a lot of times it's just like you run straight. It's hard to mess up as the receiver, right? You either drop it, you catch it, or a lot of times if you don't come down with the play, it's a deep ball. So it's you're not going to be graded negatively for it because a lot can happen, right? But this is a player who can be good on deep. You look at it and you had Luke Grimm, who's your slot receiver. LJ Arnold was kind of your intermediate guy. And Quentin Skinner was kind of a deep ball threat, right? When I look at Jalen Moss, I see a guy who can be a little bit of a mix of kind of Arnold and Grimm in a couple ways. When I look at Canty, I see more of a replacement for a Quentin Skinner, and I'd be very interested in him as well. Amari Kelly, he's from Middle Tennessee State. It sounds like KU is going to have a visit, so maybe this is one to keep an eye on. 6 foot, 180-pound receiver who originally began his career at Auburn. He came in as a 4-star recruit, only had 5 catches in 2 years at Auburn, and then breaks out this year for Middle Tennessee. 53 catches, 869 yards, 4 touchdowns. He also had a punt return for a touchdown. And KU's 2 primary punt returners, Trevor Wilson, Luke Grimm, both gone. So that would be an additive there. He's going to be a true senior in 2025. So, you're not getting multiple years out of this one. But the PFF grade was good, 73.5. My one worry on this one, he played 2 games against Power 4 opponents this year, Duke and Ole Miss, which albeit both had very good defenses. He had 11 yards receiving total in the 2 games against those. So that might be a little bit worrisome to me. So I think some of those other guys I named already, I would have higher on the priority list, but I still think that would be a good addition if KU can add Amari Kelly. Caleb Goody, he is from Colorado State, 6'1" receiver. He's going to be a true junior in 2024, so 2 years left to play. Only one catch as a freshman at Colorado State, but another guy who saw his production really go up this year. Only 21 catches, which doesn't stick out, but the 436 yards does. Over 20 yards per catch, 4 touchdowns. He was a big play receiver. 6 games, including all of his final 5, where he had a long catch in the game of over 30 yards. And you also look at it, almost half of his yards came after the catch. So he's a good deep threat, and he's a good open field player. He would be somebody who kind of would be that mix of like a Trevor Wilson and Quentin Skinner, if we're talking, what role are you looking at KU? So that would be a good one as well. But it seems like his offer list is certainly jumping up as well. And then I don't know the pronunciation on this, if it's Isaiah or what, Johnson. He is a transfer from Michigan State, 6-foot receiver who redshirted in 2023 after coming in as a 3-star, played in 2024 and had 16 catches, 276 yards, 2 touchdowns, which, those are modest numbers, but solid for a redshirt freshman year. And it's even better when you consider, if you watched any Michigan State this year, like Aiden Childs, he has a high potential at the quarterback spot, but like he was not, that good of a passer this year. He was very inconsistent. So those are actually good numbers, all things considered there. He's somebody I'm very interested in. He was really good over the middle of the field. He has Power 4 experience, and he still has, because he'll be a redshirt sophomore in 2025, he'll have 3 years left to play. This, to me, would be kind of a home run for both the now and the future if you could get Isaiah Johnson. Let's finish up other offensive targets on the offensive line, the tight end position. There haven't really been any for running back and quarterback. Obviously, you already have LaShawn Williams. You don't really need a quarterback at this point in time. So let's discuss those guys up at the front of the line of scrimmage next. Finishing things up on this episode of the show with more offensive transfer portal targets for KU football. Let's go to the offensive line. Trevor Mayberry. He is a transfer from Stanford who began his career at Penn. 6'3", 310 pounds, 19 starts at Penn, then 9 starts and 11 games played at Stanford in 2023. This past year, and I don't know if he got injured at the end of his 2023 season or in the offseason, but he missed all of 2024. Supposedly he's cleared for spring ball coming up, so that's always a plus because it's one thing if you add a guy and then they can't play until fall, and then it's like, oh no, but you do get the spring out of it. So he'll have 1 year left to play, and I believe he graduates at semester. Now, the Pro Football Focus grades, not great. 53 at Penn as a freshman, up to 65 as a sophomore at Penn. And then in 2023 at Stanford, obviously jump in competition, he had a 54 PFF grade. So, I always talk about this, the grading scale there for PFF. Like basically if you're between 60 to 69, you're like an average starter at your level, right? It's not adjusted to competition, so keep that in mind. So you'd like to see that at least get up to kind of 60 there. He was only 51 in run blocking, 58 in pass blocking as the team's primary left guard. So not great grades. He allowed 25 pressures, which I think the leader of most pressures allowed on the KU offensive line was 7 this year. But I also wonder if Stanford was a bad fit for his style. I don't know. Maybe the reason he was at Penn, and I don't know this for sure, is because he's not the most dynamic, athletic offensive lineman in the world. And Kansas typically doesn't have the most athletic, dynamic offensive lineman in the world, right, these past couple of years, but they've still produced good offensive line numbers, right? They're more steady as opposed to explosive athletes. And I wonder, because Stanford has been kind of with their new coach, they're more of a spread offense. I wonder if he'd be a better fit at Kansas based on, the fact that, yeah, they do spread it out a little bit, but at the end of the day, the mashed potatoes of KU is that they're going to be kind of a power run team, the wide zone, a little bit of option and stuff like that. He's clearly a very smart kid. He's gone to Penn and Stanford. So he'd be somebody who I'd be very interested in if is he your swing offensive lineman? Is he your 6th offensive lineman? Again, a smart guy who's played tackle and guard. He can fill in at multiple positions if somebody gets hurt or if you need to rotate somebody. And that's where I'd be very interested here. Jack Tanner just had a visit to KU. He's from Tulsa, 6'6", 295. He enrolled early last year for Tulsa for spring ball, then played as a true freshman, which is not easy to do on the offensive line. 438 snaps, 377 of them came at left tackle, 60 at right guard. So he's demonstrating a little bit of versatility there. PFF grade, again, not great. Only a 52, only a 58 in run block, only a 39 in pass block. Those are not great. But again, you're throwing it was a bad Tulsa team, and clearly they were like, man, we got to throw this kid into the fire probably earlier than you would have wanted to on an offensive line position where ideally you're waiting a couple years before they get there. He did play against Oklahoma State, 56 overall grade, only a 19 in pass block, so that's not great. But again, true freshman starting left tackle with good size, and he has 3 seasons left and a redshirt available. So if you do decide, hey, we're going to bring him in, he's going to be a future piece, we can redshirt him this year and then wait 3 seasons. And obviously Logan Brown's gone. You have Calvin Clements back. Is Nolan Gorchika going to be the other starting tackle? Is it going to be like a James Livingston, or would you bring him in expecting him to be the case? If you're bringing in Tanner with the expectation for him to be a starting tackle right away, you need a big jump in play from where he was last year to this year. But if the idea here is, hey, Nolan Gorchika is going to be a redshirt senior next season, we're going to bring Tanner in. Maybe he can be our backup tackle, develop for a year, and gets to develop to where he didn't really have that opportunity at Tulsa, and then he becomes the starter the next year. Like, that would make a lot of sense to me. Kendall Stanley, he is a transfer from Charlotte, 6'5", 290 pounds. He spent 3 seasons at Charlotte, first of which was redshirting, which means he'll have 2 seasons left to play, which is always a bonus, and that's a bonus with Tanner that you can have 3 or 4 years, and Stanley, with 2 years. Only 17 snaps as a freshman, but then got a ton of run this year for Charlotte. 706 snaps, all of them at right tackle for Kendall Stanley, and he was graded as a 78 overall, a 74 in run block, 77 in pass block. He finished really strong, too. His final game, 92 grade on Pro Football Focus. That was against UAB. Against bowl teams, he actually played a decent amount of them. 73 grade against James Madison, 57 grade against North Carolina, 60 grade against Indiana, 71 against Navy, 55 against Memphis, 69 against Tulane. So kind of up and down mixed results there, but there are some good ones to point to. Honestly, among all the offensive line I mentioned, this would probably be my favorite take. I like Stanley a lot out of this group. Alvin Ebosele, he is a transfer from Baylor, gigantic, 6'6", 312 pounds. I haven't seen an offer officially yet. Maybe one did come, but I have seen that there was a scheduled visit, so we'll see what ends up happening there. He redshirted at Baylor in 2022, started 11 games at tackle in 2023, 7 games played and 3 more starts this season, mostly at left tackle, small amount at left guard, but his snap count dropped from 600 the year before to basically under 200. He'll be a redshirt junior in 2025, so 2 years left to play out of him as well. Another guy where the Pro Football Focus grades aren't in love with it. 57 overall in 2023, 57.6 in 2024. But very interesting how it all came together, because if you could put these two things together, you got something here. So 2023, only a 51 run block, but a 73 pass block, which is very good. But then this year, it's flipped. He had a 64 run block, which is adequate enough, but he only had a 29 pass block. So if you could just have a season where you have the 64 run block with a 73 pass block, that's going to be a really effective offensive lineman. Now, multiple years is good here. I don't love that among the 5 games that he had pass block snaps of, so he played 7, only 5 of them he actually had a pass block snap. Of those 5, 4 of them he had a pass block grade below 34. So that's not great. Now, he did finish the season. This is what I find interesting. Last 2 games, he played left guard, and it was only 13 snaps in the final 2 appearances without a pass block snap, so it's tough to totally tell, but a 72 and a 63 overall grade for him in those 2 games. If this is somebody who you saw enough of in that short flashes to be like, we think he can be a really good guard for us, and he can be an emergency tackle, I get it. But there is going to be a little bit of development that I think needs to be done there. But clearly, I think there's some potential. And then we'll finish up with the tight end position. A couple offers out. Luke McGarry, another player from Tulsa. So you had Joseph Williams at receiver, although that one unlikely. You have Jack Tanner, and then you have Luke McGarry from Tulsa. I had somebody ask me, they were like, man, all these offers at Tulsa. Was Tulsa pretty good last year? No, do not look up Tulsa's record if you want to see that. But that doesn't mean they don't have good players, right? It could just be they were put in bad situations, that they were playing too early, or that, there's a lot of reasons, right, that the things cannot go well. We've seen that before at KU football, where they've had talented players, but the sum of the parts wasn't there. Anyway, Luke McGarry, 6'3", 240-pound tight end. He spent 2 seasons. He'll be a true junior in 2025, 2 years left. Over the 2 seasons, 26 catches, over 300 yards. He has 4 touchdowns. He had a 68 grade on Pro Football Focus in 2023. He had a 62 grade in 2024. He's actually a really good blocking tight end, though. So he has over 170 pass block snaps in his career, mid-70s in pass block grades both seasons. He was good in run blocking in 2023, a little more inconsistent in run blocking this year. But this is one where I'm like, okay, you lose Jared Casey, who was all Big 12 first team as a fullback. Do you have an H-back replacement? Do you have an H-back who can play tight end, who can be a good blocker for you? I wonder if that would be perfect for Luke McGarry. I'm actually very interested in this one because of that blocking potential. And then the last tight end one is Connor Cox. I'd be really interested in bringing on both these guys, if I'm being completely honest, because you look at it, and I guess part of this depends on, Lance Leipold and company is going to know better about what the room is going through right now. But like I look at it and I'm going, okay, Leighton Cure and Deshaun Hanukkah are probably going to be your top two tight ends. I mean, unless you had a transfer and that guy emerges. And you're looking at it with Hanukkah, and it's like, if it's Hanukkah, the guy that you think you're getting, or the guy that we've seen before, then that's all good. But he's coming off an Achilles injury. Like, what if he is 75% of what he normally was, right? And then you look at it, and it's like, okay, well, Carson Brune and Jaden Ham are recruited at a pretty high level for you. Like, are they going to be ready to go? That's where Lance Leipold has the knowledge that I don't, because I haven't really seen them on the field. If they are ready to go, great. If not, then you might need multiple bodies, one to be that more Casey role and one to be possible receiving role. And Cox, I think, would be more of the receiving role because he's 6'5", 225. He did have one catch this year, 9-yard touchdown. He's going to have 3 seasons left. He'll be a redshirt sophomore in 2025. So only 40 total snaps on Pro Football Focus in 2 years in South Carolina. But he was a former top 800 recruit. He was an 88 graded 3-star, which Jaden Ham was an 87. Carson Brune was an 86. So theoretically, if you're viewing that as just like who has the highest potential, that would be kind of the way to do it. So I'd be tempted by both those tight ends, if I'm being completely honest. But then again, if you're Lance Leipold and you're going, hey, we feel like Jaden Ham's about to break out this season or Carson Brune's about to break out this season, then I can understand maybe only adding one for a little bit more depth there. All right, that'll do it for this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. There are plenty more KU offers out there on the defensive side, so we'll get to that on tomorrow's episode. There'll probably be more offensive offers by the time we talk, so we'll do another update for you later at some point. And we got our KU NC State preview later in the week on Friday. See you next time with Locked On Jayhawks.